What is up, you amazing advisors? Welcome to this video today, and in today's video we are going to talk about how to collect annual premium. So again, if you are an advisor today, maybe you want to collect annual premiums because of your MDRT awards and everything else, but for some reason or another you either seem to face the objections of your prospect not giving you the annual premiums they want to do monthly, and maybe you have no idea exactly how to ask and request for annual premium without being pushy and all the other things, then this video is for you. Okay, so my name is Benjamin Ong, and I'm founder of Authentic Advisory Systems. And basically we just help FAs make a lot more money while being happy, purposeful, and authentic. Okay, so I make these videos because I hope like the lessons I've learned and when I'm coaching other advisors and clients might be valuable for you, and so that you can make a lot of money as well. And hopefully one day you want to work closely with us, okay, and join us in our community and mastermind. Now, if you don't, it's perfectly fine. Lots of love for yourself. Just enjoy the video, and all I ask for you is to subscribe to the channel. So obviously, to begin with this, I think there's obviously a bunch of reasons why we prefer annual premiums. Obviously, number one, annual premiums means annual commissions, like the one lump sum commissions, right? So obviously it feels a lot better. You get the money in, you have to wait like 12 months, 6 months or whatever in the future. So that's the feel good factor. But I think more importantly, the second reason is because of like MDRT or certain awards that you want to hit, right? That they require annual premiums or the kind of production, based on your one-time FYC or lump sum kind of stuff, right? So, these are things that are key in getting you your awards. Okay, now I think these are reasons that selfishly, this is what we want for ourselves. However, one of the reasons why we even want our clients or prospects to even pay one time is because it is proven that more often than not, if you have a prospect or client that pays a one-time payment, they are more inclined to stick with the plan. Their commitment to the plan and paying it for the longer term, like in the next 5, 10, 15 years kind of premium, is a lot higher. They have a lot more higher commitment basically, right? And obviously for a couple of reasons. I think first one is just a psychological thing. There's this quote or there's this saying like, the more you put up front, the more likely you're committed to it. Something along those lines, right? But basically, it's kind of like that's how it works, right? And this is also something that we realize in our own like coaching program and advisory as well. Like we realize that advisors that in terms of our own clients, usually when they pay in full, right, they are a lot more committed to get a lot better results than an advisor who pays like on a monthly basis, right? So that's what our observations is as well. Now, obviously, the second small reason why they're more likely to stick is because when they pay annual premium, other than free look and all their stuff, they cannot cancel the plan or they cannot stop halfway, right? Because they have already paid for the first year. I just want to highlight this because I think hopefully it gives you a better conviction of like why you want to ask for annual premiums, because it allows the prospect or the client to stick with the plan and commit to it, not only for the first year, but for second, third, fourth year onwards, right? Obviously, the second, third, fourth year is also important for you as an advisor because, if they don't commit to it, they lapse, and then you have all these persistency issues. Okay, so that's, to get out of the way, the reasons. Okay, now, in today's video, sorry if you keep hearing me cough halfway, because COVID, I just recovered from COVID and is, having the COVID cough. Okay, so, but I just want to still continue making these videos. Okay, so anyways, into this video, I'm going to share with you basically what I call a waterfall down strategy, a downsell strategy of how can we get our prospects or / clients to pay annual premiums without being pushy, right? And allowing them to feel like this paying annual premiums is the right thing to do. Okay, there are four steps or 4 different tiers, right? And one small little bonus one later. Okay, so let's talk about step number 1, right? So the first thing you want to do is that when you want to go for the annual premium close, the first thing that the biggest thing that you want to do is you want to assume that they're going to pay annual, right? You want to assume you're going to pay, they want to pay annual. Now in your mind, you might be worried that, what if they choose monthly, what if they do semi-annual or whatever it is. Those things doesn't matter because those are your own experiences of the past, right? You got to assume that the prospect or the client that you're closing, like on the spot, is you're assuming they'll do annual. As though annual is by default, as a matter of fact kind of thing, okay? So that's what you want to do. So when you are going for the close, right? So maybe you end off with, okay, any questions? And they're like, no, I have no questions, all is good. And then the next question that you want to ask, you want to do a secondary close, right? Which is, okay, would credit card, bank transfer, or pay now be good for you, for example, right? You just want to give them the illusion of choice, which is basically assume close them, and then more importantly, it's like you just assume they're doing annual. Now, never ever do a couple of things which I realized when advisors brought it up to me, is that Never ever. So usually what happens is that you soft close them, like they say no problem and they say let's go ahead with it, for example, right? They say I want to do credit card. Now, this is a soft close, right? The next step obviously is to go through the application, which is, to fill out the questionnaire, they fill out whatever it is. And usually in application, there will be in this box, whereby they will talk about what is the payment mode, right? Is it monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, annual, whatever it is, right? Now, you got to assume and get them to commit to an annual close. They're going to do that before going through the application, right? So one of the things that one of the advisors did when he was bringing up this case study with me is that the application is, the reason why he cannot do an annual close is because you run through the application and then at the payment mode there is like monthly, frequent, semi-annual, whatever it is, and then the prospect just says, you know what, this one I think I want to do semi-annual, right? So he basically just allows the prospect to just like choose and whatnot, right? I'm not saying like your prospect cannot choose, but again, like if you want to do like annual and whatnot, the best way, right, is to just say like, you know what, so let's go back to role play again, right, to the script again. So it's like, are there any questions to the prospect? And the prospect says like, oh no, all is good, everything's fine. And you say, okay, great. Now before we move on, I'd like to check, I got a couple of questions for you, right? So the first one is, will you prefer credit card, bank transfer, or pay now, right? And then they'll choose either one of it. I think credit card would be great. And then after the second question I'll ask usually is, okay, great. So you use credit card and the total is about 3.6. Okay, all good. Okay. My next question here is also like, are you healthy? Right? Are you healthy? So because obviously, insurance and buying insurance requires health, yada yada and stuff like that. Right? So are you healthy as well? So these are the kind of like the questions I'll ask, and then in between I say in total, I'll just kind of like pre-frame and say total is 3.6 for the entire year, and before we carry on with it, using credit card, can I ask you a question? Are you healthy? Right, so this is usually how I say it, and when you look at it, when you put it subtly, like put it in, you're kind of like pre-framing and getting them to commit, right? Now, obviously, if they have any issues of like, they want to pay, about the payment modes, they will bring it up at that point in time, right? Which, I'll share with you the second step of how to deal with it. But generally speaking, this is how you want to kind of assume the close and assume the payment modes, okay? Before going into the application. Right, so that's step number one, right? And I think more importantly, you got to believe and stay with confidence and what I call like MOF, right? Call like MOF, right? So basically, first step is assume close yearly, okay? And you want to have confidence in saying it. You got to assume. And more importantly, this is a mentality that I think is helpful. It's just called MOF, which is matter of fact. Right? Because when you have a matter of fact mentality, which is like, yeah, we're just going to do yearly, you're just going to go ahead, and this is how it's going to be like. What is happening is that you end up, this in psychology, you end up what we call normalizing, right? What might seem to be something that is not common, right? You normalize it to make it sound like it's something that everybody does, okay? And you need to have a matter of fact mentality. Okay, so that's step number one. Now, here's what's happening as well, right? So, if all goes well, with step number one, you're able to close annual. Okay? Now, more often than not, there are going to be objections, right? This is where after you say it, and then they'll ask you a question. They say like, hey, you know what, Ben? Is there a must to pay annual? Like, must it be annual? Can I pay in other forms? Whatever it is, right? Now, first of all, when someone asks this question, you first understand this is a question, not an objection. Okay? It is a question that might lead to an objection, but it's not an objection yet. Okay, it's just a question. You just want to check, hey, must I pay annual and whatnot? So the best way to do this is what I call step 2, right? Is what I call, let me just do this. Step 2 is what I call dangle the carrot, right? And here's how the process looks like, right? So the person asks you, hey Ben, or hey Sarah, is there a need for me to pay in annual for the thing? Can I pay in monthly or whatever it is, right? Number one, you give them the straight face, which is, oh yeah, you can choose other modes. So you first acknowledge, right? You acknowledge that, and you say that, hey, sure, you can choose other modes. So you acknowledge and say that, hey, there is an option to do other things. Then after you follow by step number 2, give them a reason plus social proof, right? So what? So how it sounds like is, hey, yeah, hey, you're right. There are actually, you can use other options as well. However, most of my clients when they usually make purchases like this or make an investment like this, they rather do a one-time payment because fill in whatever reasons. Okay, so the reason could be they do that in one-time payment because usually, you know, they don't want to think so much about monthly payments, you know, and like having the feeling of like having to pay for insurance and everything else. They rather just one sum, pay it off, right? And, you know, just commit to it, right? So that's one reason. The second reason usually is because sometimes they worry, you know, they don't feel good about paying like insurance, and like, you know, they worry that they'll cancel it or whatever it is. And sometimes they tell me and say that, hey Ben, you know what? Just take my money, I'll just do a one-time payment, no issues, get it over and done with. So usually most of my clients do that because of these reasons, right? So that's usually the case. And then once you finish explaining and normalizing it, you keep quiet. You keep quiet. And then you look at the person. Because remember, don't talk so much because this is not an objection, it's just a question the person is asking, right? And they're just answering it. And after that, this person will either, the prospect or the client will either be, oh, okay. Okay, I get it. Then, if this person says this, again, you're good to go, you'll close annual. However, if this person says, okay, and they give a kind of uncertain, they're like, they're kind of like thinking and stuff like that. Sorry. This is where you will go in and then you can ask, yeah, so is there a challenge with that? Is there a problem with that? And then this is where you kind of like fish out, right? Because if they're uncertain, they'll probably like bring it up later on when they're doing the application or payment. But so you want to bring it up here, and then they'll usually say like, yeah, you know, maybe it's cash flow, you know, and all the other things and stuff like that, yada yada and whatever. Okay, now when they say things like this is where it comes to step 3, which I'll share with you like how you can handle it. Okay, but for now, right, you just recap. Step 1, you just assume close, and then number 2, right, you acknowledge their question. If you cannot close, and they'll ask you a question, you acknowledge that question, and then you give a reason and social proof statement, right? Almost my clients do this because blah 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 blah. Okay, so this is a small little bonus that I usually do, and that I usually recommend doing as well. They work for us, like at the very least, and our clients, right? And hopefully it works for you. So the third one, right, is literally called like dangle the carrot. So you want to give in a sweetener, or like basically sweeten the deal, right? So basically this is where you offer an incentive, you know, and the incentive could be vouchers, it could be whatever it is to incentivize them to do annual payments, right? So that it makes the annual payment option worth it and it's beneficial for them, right? Now, bearing in mind, I think here's the important thing, like you only want to give the vouchers or incentives as a sweetener, meaning to say you already went through the concept presentation, they buy it for the right reasons. Then this comes in at this stage in time when you're about to close to sweeten the deal. What happens is that a lot of people tend to use vouchers, discounts and stuff like that at the start of the appointment, or they use it to close the person and say that, you know, why don't you do it because, you know, there's a 5% discount and all the other things. I usually wouldn't recommend that way because this what happens is that the prospect then might be buying for the wrong reasons, right? And people buy for the wrong reasons, they might terminate and it's not really good for you anyways. Okay, so this is for me to put a disclaimer that you want to sweeten the deal by using an incentive after they already committed to buying it. Okay, so you can say my agency or my team, anyway, my agency, my team, for example, right now, you know, they're running a campaign, and just nice, you know, if we close any cases or like anyone applies, you know, within these 30 days, they get a chance to win XXX, win something, right? Usually, the something, my own recommendation is that you want to give something that is highly perceived in value for the person, right? So if this person is already earning a lot of money already, income is high, and you offer them this person, you win $250 in cash. Now, usually, like $250 is still money, but the perceived value wouldn't be as high. What I would suggest or proposing is like, hey, you know what, this $250, you will be invited, you'll win 2 seats, or like 2 slots or reservations at Colony Buffet, right? You know, each is worth like $120 each, you know, but you can bring a wife along, and both of you can go and really celebrate and enjoy and everything else, right? So you realize that the idea of like bringing another person along with their loved ones to go for a celebration seems to be highly perceived in value compared to just $250, even though the cost could be the same, right? Gold class tickets is also another one that it could be popular, right? Gold class tickets right now is about $40, at least Singapore is about $40 per pax. on a weekend and stuff like that. You know, so if you times 2 is, let's say it's $80, right? But you can say that, hey, you have 2 gold class tickets to any movies that you want, and you can bring your girlfriend along, or you can bring your boyfriend along. See, the perceived value is a lot higher than just giving them $80, right? So again, you have to see, some people, however, still love money, so that might be a better one for them, okay? So this is how you can sweeten up the deal, right? And stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend giving too much, again, because like, you don't want them, first of all, you don't want to give like half the commissions to them, or like give them a lot of money, because like, first of all, that isn't a good business sense. That isn't good business sense. It doesn't make sense at all. Number 2 is because, like, I think depends on regulations and whatnot. I usually don't recommend more than 10% of the premiums. So for example, if someone buys 3,006 a year in terms of premiums from you, the most incentive that you probably want to sweeten up a deal, max is 10% of that, which is like $360, right? So usually 3.6K, I usually will do around like 5 to 7%. So that's about like, you know, $180, $200. That's more than enough already, just to sweeten up a little bit, right? So that's usually what works well, right? And this will give an additional boost to, you know, why they should do annual and why this makes sense for them. Okay, so by now, if you do these 2 things, you should be able to get a person to do annual already. Okay, now, however, again, there might be people that just say that, you know what, Ben, I'd love to do this. However, cash flow is the issue, right? Cash flow is the issue. Like, I want to do what you do. I want to have the vouchers and everything, but cash flow is the issue. So, step number 3, right? The tiered, remember? Tiering objection handling. So the third one is basically what I call financing options. And so what it means is that the person doesn't have a problem paying premiums for insurance investment or savings plan or whatever. They just have a challenge with the cash flow in paying one lump sum, right? So here's a few angles that you can possibly consider, right? One of it is that if you have a chance, let's say you're doing a policy review, then maybe, you know, there's a surrendering of certain policies that's really not necessary and irrelevant to them in their current portfolio, and the cash value, you can use that to help fund the policies, right? So other policies funding, it can be in a form of surrendering a policy, especially usually those old policies that, you know, might not be of any use and stuff like that. Obviously, please do things ethically, okay? If they just don't anyhow surrender people's policies, but, you know, that's one of the options. The other possibility here might not be a surrender, but maybe it could be a partial withdrawal, right? So this is where basically, if let's say you have an ILP that allows partial withdrawal and all that things, you know, you can withdraw partial of it to help fund this, right? So that's one option. The other options to help them to do the funding is really looking at their current assets, you know, and I think you probably know this a lot better. So, you know, checking their cash flow, balancing out, you know, yada yada and stuff like that, right? And you kind of like show in perspective how the lump sum isn't hurting their current assets and numbers relative to the benefits of paying it at one shot, right? Because more often not people actually have money. It's just that they just feel heart pain, right? You know, they just feel like, ouch, you know, I'm putting one lump sum out, you know. It's usually the perspective and a perception kind of thing, but if you really draw all your assets, you know, this money or this amount seems mediocre, or mediocre isn't the word, like seems like small basically, okay? So that's another one. The third one, right, is basically future cash flow, right? So future cash flow. So maybe just nice is end of the year and then they have potentially like bonus coming in, and this could be something to help offset, right? So that's kind of like a seed that you can plant. If that doesn't work, the other one is something that that works pretty well, is help using their credit cards, right? So if they're using credit card, suggest them to use credit card to pay, because, you know, first of all, they can't feel the pinch as much, but more importantly, credit card allows, especially if a company can do it, it allows IPP, which is basically installment payment plans, right? So basically what it means is that, you know, the prospect pays basically the bank pays your insurance company one lump sum, right? But the prospect only pays the bank on a monthly basis. So it's basically installment to the bank, right? So instead of paying 3.6K, they only pay, let's say, 300 a month. But to the insurance company and to you, you receive as though it's a one lump sum. Okay, so a credit card is really one of the best ways, if you ask me. Some of your prospects might be fresh graduates, so maybe, you know, you gotta help them apply and stuff like that, and, you know, and stuff. Okay, so that's usually like the financing options that I can think of at this point in time, okay, to help you with it. Okay, now, by now, you should really, the prospect can really probably, like, you know, you should really kind of like do annual already. However, However, worst case, you exhausted all means, right? And then this person is like, you know what, I really can't, can I do other payment modes? Now, no problem, right? So this is a mistake that I usually see, right? When you want to, so usually it's annual, and then what happens is that people will jump straight into monthly, or rather, so you need to understand human brains. People will either think, either I pay one lump sum or I pay monthly. Even when people think of the word installment, they'll think of a 12-month installment. That makes sense? When you think of installment, what do you think of? 12 months. You won't think of 6 months, 3 months, you will not. You think of a 12 months installment, right? So that's how human brain works. If either I pay one lump sum or it's a monthly 12 months thing. So therefore, what you want to do is that you want to downsell the various payment modes. So fourth is downsell payment modes. So what this means is very simple. What this means here is, you say like, oh, you know what, if annual can't, that's not an issue. Shall we do semi-annual? You start out with semi-annual, right? Don't give them money straight away. Go down to semi-annual. If semi-annual cannot, then guess what? You have a quarterly options. Now, if quarterly options really cannot, then okay, no choice, then you do monthly, right? So that's usually like how you want to do it, like to downsell the various payment modes so that you don't have to worry so much about like, you know, straight away going down to the monthly kind of like payment mode. This is usually what happens. So if you can do it, at least, you know, you don't get monthly, you get semi-annual, you know, better than like just monthly payment mode, and it helps with your MDRT and everything else. Okay, so so if you look at it, the recap, right, is basically assume close, right, and normalizing it, give a matter of fact mentality, and assume they use credit card bank transfer and then move ahead. If they don't, then okay, then go to carrot, right? Acknowledge that, hey, you know what, there are other payment modes. However, this is usually what most of my clients do. They do it because of ABC reasons. And then if that still doesn't work, or you can stack it up basically with a sweetener, right? You can say a sweetener, hey, by the way, my agency is running this, my team is running this, or like, hey, I'm running a campaign. If you can't say your team or agency, you can say, hey, I'm running a campaign that, you know, within 30 days, I reward my clients to blah, 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 right? You get a chance to win this, so might as well, right? So that's that. And then usually make sure it's less than 10% of total premiums in terms of the gift or the incentive that you want to provide, okay? Third one, if that still doesn't work, then you need to think of financing options, and there's other policies you can fund. Current assets and cash, you know, basically big versus small, making the 3.6K look small versus the amount of assets they have. Third, future cash flow, like bonuses, for example. And then the fourth one will be like using credit card for installment payment plans. And then if all these things still doesn't work, you still can downsell the payment modes, right? Go to semi-annual, quarterly, before you head to monthly. Okay, so that's basically the the waterfall, you get it, waterfall kind of like payment modes. Now, there is one small little bonus. One of the things I didn't think of it. This is one of my clients who tried it, and it worked for her. So a lot of things as a bonus, you can try it out. One of the things that she said was, you know what, you can do yearly for the first year, then you can do monthly for the second year after. And the reason why, I think this person was buying an accumulation plan. I think it's an investment or whatnot. And he said, like, you know, because when you do annual, you can really buy into the market right now, yada yada, and allow compound interest to work better and give you better gains and everything else, and buy into the market. Do the second year, then of course you can dollar cost average even more if you want to on a monthly or semi-annual basis. But for the first year, this is what I would suggest doing it, right? Yeah. So usually this is what I call concession. So usually people, again, it's still getting them to do 1 year, but you paint them a picture that second year they can do monthly or other payment modes, right? And for some reason, it just works pretty well when you put it that way. Okay. So whole point, right? If I had to recap, I already recapped these 4 things, and then plus this bonus kind of like statement over here, right? And I think before we end off the video, I hope this is helpful for you. Now, before we end off the video, I think the reason why the waterfall tiering objection handling kind of staircase works that I mentioned just now is because we're leveraging on this law called the law of concession, right? It's I think I read this somewhere from Robert Cialdini from Persuasion or Influence, right? The book. So what it means here is that, you know, when we give concession to people, let's say you ask someone for something and they say they don't want to do it or they can't do it, and then you're like, oh, you know what, never mind, if you can't do this, can you do this? Now, this means is I'm giving a concession. Like, you know what, I'm not going to get you to do my request A, I'll do request B, which is slightly smaller. So that the act of like, you know what, I give in to you, which sounds weird, right? But like the very act that I give in to you, you know what, it's okay, never mind, but at least can you do this? This concession allows a lot of the opposite party to be more willing to give in to the options. That's usually how it is, and because I think there's a lot of reciprocity, it's because like it's kind of like I give in to you, and then now you give in to, then people like to reciprocate me giving in, right? And all that things. So this kind of like the law of concession. You can read more about it. So that's number one. Number two, to understand here is that the one important thing to deliver, like one important thing for the waterfall method to work is the way you deliver, right? You always need to understand that you phrase it in a way that the reasons why we are doing pay in fulls or like annual payments is because of them, not us, right? You cannot use it and say in a way whereby you want the annual commissions, you want to do MDRT and stuff like that. It has always to be for them. And the reason why that's important is because when you place the focus and attention on doing it because of them and phrasing the way that it's all for them, you wouldn't sound pushy. That makes sense? Like, it prevents you from being pushy. If you only keep thinking, I want my annual, I want my one lump sum, I want whatever it is, right? Even you can say the exact same things that I said, like the script or whatever it is, but you might come out a little pushy and aggressive, right? So the whole point, again, the delivery matters, and always think, how is this going to benefit for the client, and it's going to be win-win for both parties. Okay, so again, I hope this video is valuable for you and helpful to, really do a annual collection of payments and premiums. And if you can really do that, let me know if all these things works and it's helpful for you. Hopefully it helps you to MDRT and able to help you close more cases. Okay, if not, thank you and for your attention. Please continue to watch videos, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next video.